Ah, what is early voting and how is it different than voting in person on election day?
Sure, that's a very good question and one that is pretty confusing to a lot of people. So I know everybody's shorthand to call early voting is a thing, but in our world, in the elections world that I live in, it's actually in-person absentee voting. It is not an election. It's like an election day experience, except that your ballot is not fed through a tabulator if your county is using a ballot card, or if you're using a touchscreen type voting system, the information is not uploaded and tabulated. All of your votes before election day are always considered absentee votes, and they're not counted until election day. So if you're going in and you're doing in-person absentee, in some counties you'll walk in and you'll sign an electronic poll book, which might be substantially similar to what you do on election day. In other counties, they will have applications there for you to fill out. Now, you don't have to have a reason to vote early in person, but you do need to bring that photo ID with you. And I think we're going to talk about that later, but you do have to have that valid photo ID with you to be able to vote early. And so then you go in and your ID is checked, of course, and then you're given the ballot. So you're either given a paper ballot or you're given, you're taken over to a voting system where they have a touch screen, which is its own separate contained unit. I'm sorry, I'm getting in the weeds here, but I know in Vanderburgh County, I think you guys moved to a different system where you have a ballot marking device that feels like a touch screen, and it is a touch screen, but the ballot marking device actually doesn't store any data on it. The card is printed out, and the card is where all your votes are contained. And then on election day, you would take your card over and put it through a tabulator, right? But for in-person absentee voting, instead, you will not feed it through a tabulator because that's against state law. And instead, you will put it in an envelope that is then sealed where you sign the affidavit, and the absentee voter board who watched you do the process and watched you sign the envelope will also print their name and sign it. And then that ballot is stored with the other absentee ballots. Everything is stored by precinct. It's stored in, I call it a receptacle, but it could be a filing cabinet. It could be a garage. It could be a closet. It could be a whole room or a wing in a building. But whatever it is, the entrance to it and the exit to it, any place where there's a door, there has to be a bipartisan lock on it. So everything is being stored by precinct in a receptacle with a bipartisan lock. And then on election day, those absentee ballots are counted at a central location. And then, of course, if you're voting on election day, your ballot is fed through that tabulator, as I've already mentioned. And then at the end of the night, the results are tabulated at that polling place. And then all the brains from the voting system and such are brought to the county election board, which then begins canvassing the results. So that's more than what you asked for, but that's in a nutshell why those things are different. It's before election day, any sort of voting is considered absentee voting, and those ballots are not counted on election day. Anything occurring on election day obviously is a similar experience. It's just that your ballots are being counted on site.
Sure. But early voting is different. Like, I mean, everyone's eligible to early vote, but not everyone is eligible to vote by mail.
Correct. So absentee voting by mail in our state law requires there to be a reason. And there are, I think, 11 or 12 reasons that are prescribed in state law. I, as co-director, don't get to decide what those reasons are. We just create a form that lists what the state legislature has decided are valid reasons to request a ballot to vote by mail. So that's its own subset of absentee voting. We also have travel board. And so in our state, a person has to be able to personally mark their own ballot. And if they're not able to do that, then they have to call upon a travel board. And the travel board is a bipartisan team to assist that voter who cannot personally mark their ballot. They also assist voters who are confined to their home due to illness or injury and their caregivers. The travel board also can assist voters with disabilities who believe their polling place is inaccessible to them. And so the travel board will bring the ballot to the voter, and in some cases, they may have voting systems with adaptive technology that they can bring out to the voter to help that voter vote privately and independently if that's what they choose to do. And then there's a fourth type, but it really only applies to military and overseas voters. They have special rules under our federal laws, and they can use a form that's called the Federal Postcard Application, the FPCA, that extends voter registration deadlines for them, also allows them to request an absentee ballot by mail or email or fax. So they get more options because they're typically overseas and maybe their mail is not being delivered as timely as it should.
Sure. Very nice. Where can I find information on early voting dates, times, and locations for my county?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say always double check, always start with your county and see if your county has information about their voting locations. And if your county doesn't have information, or in some cases doesn't have a website, then go to indianavoters.com. And if you log into that My Voter portal page, that you can find the link kind of in the lower right corner of that main landing page, you can get logged in and find those early voting locations, dates and times. But our system is dependent on the counties entering that information. So that's why I always say start with the county first, because they most likely have more accurate information on their website. And then as we get closer to the election, they're putting information into our system that is reflective of what their actual state is. And then another website where we give our state data to is gettothepolls.com. It's gettothepolls.com. It's through a partnership with a nonpartisan nonprofit where we give them our polling location and election day polling location and early voting information. And that one is address driven. So that does not require you to log into a voter portal and find customized information. Instead, it allows you to go to it and type in an address and see where your early voting locations are. If you're a vote center county, which vote center is closest to you. If you're a non-vote center county, what precinct polling location is assigned to you and your address.
Heck yeah. And for USI students, we'll be sharing information about like early voting times, locations, dates for just Vanderburgh County. You're not going to do every single county in the state, but a lot of our students are from Evansville, you can all register in Evansville if you so chose. Yes. But so we'll make that available as well. But yeah, that's great for everyone, even if you're out of state, wherever you need to go. Okay, shifting gears again.